Every year, 650,000 Americans return to their communities after being released from prison. Within a few years, more than half of them are expected to return to jail again. In 2018, there were over 6 million people in prison, jail, on parole, or on probation. We have to begin to question why Americans make up 5% of the global population, but make up 25% of the world's prison population. It's not because America is full of criminals. It's because we have an unfair and predatory prison system. It has a wide range of issues, but the most important are the for-profit prison industry, unfair targeting of Black and brown people, and the cycle of incarceration. In this episode of Community Connections, we're going to be learning about the prison system and issues surrounding the prison industrial complex. What is the prison industrial complex? The prison industrial complex refers to the overlapping of interests of government and industry that use surveillance, policing, and imprisonment as solutions to economic, social, and political problems. Scholars, activists, and even incarcerated people point to the 13th Amendment as the reason to why our system functions the way it does. The 13th Amendment reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." Many point to the fact that this amendment allows for slavery as a punishment for those convicted of crimes. It's even more problematic when we learn that America is incarcerating Black people at a rate 5 times higher than white people. And we're also profiting off their underpaid and often unpaid labor. Black men in particular are disproportionately represented within the prison system and are also more likely to be arrested and convicted than white counterparts, and are also more likely to be arrested and sentenced than other racial and ethnic groups. Statistics show that Black Americans make up 18% of our population, yet make up almost 30% of our incarcerated population. These numbers aren't acceptable, yet they're still commonplace across the United States. They also found that there's 12 states where Black Americans make up more than half of the prison population. Maryland tops the whole United States, where more than 70% of their population is made up of Black Americans. In California, New Mexico, and Arizona, we see similarly shocking information when it comes to the incarceration of Latinx people. In New Mexico state prisons, Latinx people make up more than 60% of the prison population. In Arizona and California, these numbers sit at about 42%. There's also other issues outside of racial inequality when it comes to our prison system. The private prison industry has expanded over the years to the point where the increase of incarcerated people in America incentivizes companies because of the appeal of profits. Companies that own private prisons have promoted and lobbied for mandatory minimums, 3 strikes laws, and truth in sentencing, all policies that drastically increase the number of incarcerated people and increase the money in their pockets. Private prisons commonly do so by employing non-union, inexperienced, and low-skilled workers and giving them lower pay and little benefits when compared to their government-owned counterparts. These factors usually feed into the already complicated prison dynamics, often creating prisons with higher rates of violence and conflicts between inmates and guards. And many times they're incentivized to treat inmates as just another way to make profit. Another issue with our current system is the cycle of incarceration that many people go through. This cycle keeps happening because many people see prison as a form of punishment rather than a form of rehabilitation and transformation for prisoners. Punishment in this way, otherwise known as negative reinforcement, is actually much more harmful than it is beneficial for anyone involved. And this fact is agreed upon by many social workers, educators, and incarcerated people themselves. Although it can stop some people from committing crimes out of fear, it doesn't help people understand why what they did was wrong or why they shouldn't continue to do that in the first place. People aren't born criminals. They're born into systems that oppress them and force them into these kinds of patterns. And even after being released, many people find their way back into the prison system because there are no opportunities for them after they're released. According to the NAACP, 75% of formerly incarcerated people are still unemployed after a year of being released. This is significant because lack of stable employment is the single most important predictor of recidivism. There are also around 50,000 restrictions against people with arrest and conviction records that greatly block their access to jobs, housing, and educational opportunities that would help them get back on their feet. Our system isn't focused on getting people back into the world. It's focused on keeping them within the system. What would Jesus think about the cycle that we're putting incarcerated people through? In Mark chapter 2, verse 17, we hear Jesus say, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." And he wants to set prisoners free from more than physical incarceration. He wants to set them free from the patterns that they've been subjected to. He also expects us to support them through their journey towards liberation. Not only is this an important part of God's work, but it's an important part of the church's too. We may have made prison a place for punishment, but God wants us to make it a place for transformation. He doesn't give up on incarcerated people, and neither should we. It's our job to support those who are in this cycle as they go through their own journeys to rejoin their communities. So how can we continue to support them? One way is to work with organizations that continue to advocate for and support them. And this is especially hard during the COVID-19 pandemic, where jails and prisons have been hit so hard by it. And many ministries like our partner Kairos have had to take a pause on their work. The Trans Latino Coalition has been working hard during the pandemic to make this a possibility though. And they have opportunities to support trans incarcerated people on their Instagram page. Their reentry program supports trans, gender non-conforming, and intersex individuals who are being released from jails, prisons, and immigration detention centers by providing comprehensive case management services, food, transportation, rental assistance, and referrals to them. This is especially important as the trans community is extremely susceptible to violence and abuse. Although we can't do much outreach right now, a great way to better be prepared for when we can is to educate yourself about the topic. A great place to start is by reading The New Jim Crow or even watching 13th on Netflix. Both of these provide information about the way racial inequality and the prison systems work together to make profits in this country. Our prison system is broken, but that doesn't mean that making change or abolishing the system isn't possible. With all the information we have now and all the information that we can get from these resources, hopefully we can become better advocates for our incarcerated community as we go forward and exit the pandemic. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so that way you'll know when the next video comes out.